Hey, how's it going? This is Das, and today we're going to be looking at a Monstermachy replay between Maggie and Kenzie. Kenzie in the blue, or blue side, and Maggie on red side. So let's take a moment to look at the teams real quick. Maggie's team consists of the Cyclops, the Dragon, the Pegasus, and the Lavellan. So this is a flying core, or an aerial core. And let's just take a second and review what everybody does. Cyclops is a terrestrial that has a unique ability of using a ranged attack. And the way that this functions is that if it did not move itself last turn or travel, it may then this turn use a ranged attack in a linear line. So just north, south, east, and west, a maximum range of 4 squares. And that ranged attack will hit the first unit in line. Okay, and we have the Dragon. And again, it's a flying unit. Flying units travel very similar actually to the last range attack of the Cyclops, where it's linear and maximum 4 squares. But the Dragon is able to capture all units it flies over. You know, there's a magical world in which case it can capture 4 units in one shot, but you usually won't be seeing that. The Pegasus, another flying unit, is able to move and act. So act meaning to either move or capture, combination of both, in the same turn that it's hatched. So when the Pegasus is off the field, any nest can really truly turn into a attacking Pegasus. Very strong unit in the right hands. Lavellan, a really interesting unit to try and pilot. After it has spent at least one turn in the water, when it leaves that body of water, all units that are orthogonally adjacent to that body of water will become poisoned, and that includes allies. And a quick review of what poison is. It's a status condition in which if that unit that is poisoned is not selected to move the next turn or a turn, it will be captured and removed from the board. So if you ever have 2 poisoned units, one of them is going to die because you're going to have to keep moving one until it is either captured or it dies from poison, while the other one's kind of left out. So again, you have to be in water and then get out of water, and I think we're going to be seeing some of that this game. And then over to Kenzie's team. She's a slightly more complicated team. Starting with the Aspidochelone, it's an aquatic unit. Its unique feature is that while it's in water, it may self-petrify. And normally, petrification is a status condition in which you do not want your units to be subject to, because when a unit becomes petrified, they cannot move. They're disabled. They can't act at all. They cannot be hatched because they are still present on the board. And the only way to reverse it is if a unit is responsible for petrifying another is if you capture the offending or unit or the source of the petrification. So, but petrification for the Aspidochelone works in a different way. It actually petrifies itself, and the theme of which is that Aspidocleones are known to pretend to be islands, so that would-be sailors or other victims would kind of mount it, and then it would go into a rage and attack them. So the way that this works is that it may move, and it may then petrify itself, but only when it's in water, and that part is important. And while it's petrified, it's actually one of the only units that can unpetrify itself. But it needs to have one qualification in order to unpetrify itself. It needs to have a unit within 2 squares of it. So that can be a nonlinear or linear. It's just not diagonal necessarily. So you can have not 2 diagonal squares, I should say. So as long as it stays near to allies or enemies, it can then unpetrify itself. And then once it unpetrifies itself, it can then only move with 2 movement points. So you're not going to unpetrify yourself and then zip through 4 squares of water or anything. But it is a slow, insidious kind of like hard to capture unit. And, to make sure that's not crazy powerful, if it captures something, it cannot then petrify itself that turn. So it's not going to capture something and then be uncapturable, luckily. Okay, so then we have the Caladrius, an aerial unit that when it is hatched, so first obviously it needs to be captured and then you need to bring it back to your board. When it does that, it will cure all the allied units on the board of their status conditions. So if things are poisoned or petrified or paralyzed or frozen or burned, and the Caladrius, and you hatch your Caladrius, all of your other units will be cured. So it's a fun unit. It's, you need some setup, but you're able to kind of, it's a pretty solid counter against teams that heavily rely on SAS conditions. And also it's a good way of bailing out some of your units that self SAS condition, i.e. the Aspidochelone if you ever leave it out in the middle of nowhere. Then we have the Komainu, a very interesting defensive unit. So while it's on a row with another allied unit, it will petrify all allied nests. And normally nests are not subject to petrification or any status condition of that in the same way that monster units are. But the Komainu is different from, or unique in that you are petrifying your own units. Positives of that is while they're petrified, they can't be captured. All petrified units are non-unit mountains. So they're truly like an unoccupied square. So you can start climbing over your own nest without capturing. The enemy can't capture them. The downside, of course, is not only are you and your ally, 2 whole units, stuck on that row and must remain there, but you cannot also not hatch an allied monster out of a petrified nest. There's a question as to whether a petrified nest should count towards you having any nest on your board, and I think that's definitely something that will need to be balanced. But it does come up in this game, so I'm kind of curious as to the balance implications of that. All right, so, and lastly, we have for Kenzie, also having an aerial core here, is the Rainbow Crow. Rainbow Crow, another self-status conditioning unit. I didn't notice till the last one that this really is a self-status conditioning team, although I guess the Caladrius won't cure nests, even though it says units, because it's then well, I guess that's a point of some balance contention. All right, but back to Rainbow Crow. The way it functions is that it may move, it may act, it may capture in one turn, and then it may activate its ability, burning itself, and a burned unit only has +2 movement points for the rest of its life, and then after that, it needs to be captured in order to regain that ability. This is a once per life ability, so just because you're unburned doesn't mean you can activate the ability again. But when you burn yourself, you have to then designate an allied unit that turn, so your opponent will have an entire turn to kind of try to work around this now empowered unit, because it will be given 2 extra movement points. So let's say the Rainbow Crow moves, it captures something, then the player signifies that it's burned, and then they choose an allied unit that they would like to receive 2 extra movement points for a total, on average, usually, of 6 movement points the following turn. So it's a good way to really support other units. And yeah, we're gonna see how that kind of shakes out in this game. All right, again, yeah, we have Kenzie in blue, Maggie in red. We're just going to skip ahead a little bit. The board's already set up, so they're going to do a draft, going back and forth. No crazy counter picks. I mean, the Caladrius is picked last, which makes sense. Kenzie putting her Komainu on the only kind of green squares that she has access to, still kind of stuck in this kind of enclave surrounded by mountains. Pegasus put on this mountain range. Unfortunately, the Lavellan has no water squares that it can start in. The rule being that when you're setting up your monsters, it needs to be placed in your last 2 rows. But Maggie doesn't have any water, so the Lavellan would love to start in water and then threaten to be able to get out, poisoning many units. But it's not going to happen. She's going to have to spend a turn getting in the water and then getting out of the water. Kenzie putting her Rainbow Crow also on a bordering column. All right. Aspidochelone put in the water. That makes a lot of sense. Really trying to... Maggie's kind of building a bastion here, controlling these 2 mountain, heavily mountain columns. A lot of water here. It's going to be hard to get in there. Kenzie choosing to line up 2 aerial units. So not a lot of action, or a lot of pressure, I should say, on that column. Dragon is being put in the middle on the back row. Okay. And now we're going to start putting some nests down. You're going to see usually Komainu players, like normally you're not putting nests all on one row. They're kind of easy to capture by a single aerial unit. But Kenzie's choosing to do that, and that's pretty common with the Komainu strategy. I think she's developed, in which case putting them all on one row means that they will all be petrified. And I think you'll see generally when you're showing that a unit is status conditioned, you will flip that unit upside down. You may choose to also flip the card or rotate the card that represents that monster on the side to kind of also help keep track. Usually it's not too difficult, especially if there's only one monster or one type of status condition being had on the field. But this game is going to be a little complicated. I think you, as a player and as a observer, you need to work a little extra hard in kind of keeping track of things, because there's burn, there's petrification, and there's poison that will all be happening all at one time. So important to see the order of operations and seeing what units are moving. And I think through this commentary, though, we'll have a pretty good idea of what's occurring. All right, so nests are being placed, 3 on 1 row. All right, so now we're starting. There are 3 on 1 row for Kenzie and 1 in the back. Pretty common for the Komainu, as we said. I think these 3 right here should all be petrified. They should be flipped upside down, but I think that will happen in turn. Kenzie choosing to use her turn 1 to... And was she turn 1? Let me just double check. Yeah, so she put her last nest, and now she moves first, so she'll move that unit over there. Question is, like, could she have captured that? She was 1 away, so she's choosing not to be next to it. The Lavellan, Maggie's going to move 1 over on the land. Now, the reason why she didn't go in the water is because she would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, and would have been in capture range. She could have been here on this swamp, but she chose, I guess, to try and be a little bit closer here. Yeah, a very incremental movement. So this is the Aspidochelone moving 1 square, and it's choosing to petrify. So this is no longer water. This is mountain. These 2 bodies, this previous 1 body of water is now counting only as, or is counting as 2, because it is no longer connected because this mountain's here, quote unquote. But it will be able to unpetrify at any time, because as you can see, there is at least 1 unit within 2 squares of it. So this nest, that counts towards that action. Very aggressive dragon play, going right into the middle of the board, threatening this nest. I like it. I guess it's not really threatening, and you'll see why in a second. It is also out of the range of the Aspidochelone. Here's 1 square, 2 squares, so it wouldn't unpetrify just because of the dragon. It could do that anyway because of this nest, but it can't reach, because the turn that it unpetrifies itself, it only gets 2 movement points. So just out of range, there's nothing really threatening it here, but we're going to see why it can't capture that. There we go. Like, so now that we've progressed a little bit, we've realized that these 3 nests were actually petrified. I'm not sure if Maggie knew that at the time. That could be a little bit of a player error on Kenzie's part. It's important to communicate what your units are doing, and when you're unsure, you can use the time on your clock to reread the the monster cards. So Kenzie choosing to move her her Rainbow Crow onto this petrified nest. And the reason she can do that, normally aerial units cannot land on water or swamp squares. But this isn't a water or swamp square. This is a mountain square due to the petrification. So a really cool little interaction there. Let's see what she wants. I guess she wants to protect these squares, which already the Caladrius is there, so I'm not really following that. So the dragon knows that it can't capture that. Normally that would capture that nest, but it's not going to be occurring here because petrification, obviously. Another incremental move by the bird, by the Rainbow Crow on Kenzie's part. Now she is in range of the Lavellan right here. And the question is, will Maggie see that? Or will Maggie see it and continue her attack? She's not in range to capture anything, but I'm assuming she's going to try and get this nest over here on the right in 2 turns. See what happens. Okay, yeah, so she's progressing, but Kenzie going to punish by capturing this nest. A lot of vulnerable nests here now. The Rainbird can't, or the Rainbow Crow can't capture this nest in 1 turn, but it's pretty close. So. And for that reason, Maggie's choosing to bring back the Lavellan here. She knows that if she doesn't do something with it, it's going to be captured in time. So Lavellan's a little bit inland. Still a little bit of distance to get back into water, but at least it's not kind of gone. And it looks like Kenzie's going to choose to capture that nest that she was poised to take. And she can't petrify herself again because she captured. To respond, Maggie is choosing to capture the nest that she had lined up with her dragon. All right, let's see what happens. All right, so Kenzie, very interesting, choosing to move her Caladria to the center of the board. This is a good row to be on. There's no water, plenty of options as the Caladrius. It's defending the this row up till this mountain. Which is good. I mean, it's a very powerful move. And again, brought to you by the fact that the Komainu has turned this nest into a mountain. I mean, it's already a mountain, but there's no nest there. So you're starting to see that Kenzie's really using her nests as terrain that she's kind of controlled to interesting effect. All right, so the dragon choosing to line up. This is kind of what you have to do for a Komainu, is you really need to pressure the row that it's on. You're trying to either capture monsters on the row or at least scare them off so you can start flipping nests back. And that's a pretty strong thing to do here because, one, the dragon can threaten so many units at one time. So it's one of the best things to threaten multiple units on a row. But yeah, I mean, you need to get close, and the Caladria is kind of defending it. So a little bit of an impasse there. Let's see how else everybody develops. Okay, so Kenzie choosing to move back. The question is, do you really need that to defend anything? All right, so she's going to move back there. All right, so let's see what happened. Okay, I think that was pretty quick. So, okay, that's captured. Sorry, we wound back a little bit extra there. Caladria. And then dragons go here. Okay, that goes there. And so I think what happens here is that, again, it would be nice if, I think what's important is that you should flip your bird if you're going to burn it to signify. But at this point, and I think after this game, people started using that. They started better communicating visually that not just that the bird is burned, but also that which unit is chosen to get the bonus, because that's important. That really affects the decision making of the opponent. So it looked like it moved back, and then the dragon chose to move here, which I'm a little curious about. Okay, so the reason why that this is not the worst move in the game, even though it would automatically be captured by the Aspidochelone, is that if you move the Aspidochelone, you're wasting the bird's ability that you had given to the Caladria. So the Rainbow Crow had buffed the Caladria, but it needs to use it that turn. And by forcing it to capture another unit, you are sacrificing a piece. You're kind of wasting that ability while they're also self-sabotaging one of their units. So that's kind of, and I'm not really sure otherwise what you would have to gain by moving the dragon back here. So we know that the Caladria, it's kind of mid-flight right now where we're paused. So the Caladria has a bonus movement. So we'll be able to go from this mountain, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's going to be able to actually go to the very edge of the board, and that's what she does. So that move, that 6 square move brought to you by the rainbow bird. Okay, so these nests all flip back from being petrified, and the reason being that the Caladria is no longer on that square, so they are... Okay. Unusual moves here. So now the Caladria is threatening both these squares. Great move. It is in range of being captured by the Cyclops. 1 land, 2 land, 3 land, 4 land. So Maggie could have just captured, but instead she chose to move her dragon down 1. A little bit of a blunder, I think, since Kenzie left that bird hanging. And so because she did that, the Caladria is going to be able to pretty much get a free nest here. So it's going to fly. Aerial units can fly over units, so choosing to capture on the corner space. I agree. I think that nests in corners are more difficult to attack. Even though they're right next to each other, it's not that big of a difference, but there's a slight disadvantage to attacking a nest that is in the corner just because you have less options to attack it from, less routes. Also, the other kind of like very minor min-max attack of this is that if she attacked this nest, the Cyclops doesn't actually have to move in order to capture her. The Cyclops that has not previously moved is able to use a ranged attack, meaning it doesn't have to move. So that will still take a turn, but the character doesn't have to move. And there are very few units that can act without moving and count towards their turn. But this way, the Pegasus has to take 1 step back, which not a big deal, but 1 step away from where the fight is kind of happening. We don't hate that. Okay, so that's the retaliation. And so now Mackenzie's bringing her Caladria back. It's nice to always have 2 flying units on the same row or column. Very strong, kind of similar to how rooks work in conjunction in chess operates. And again, now she's repetrified all those because now she has 2 allied monsters on the same row, or the Komainu and another. So another incremental move here. So Maggie choosing to get close to the water, I like that. It seems like a kind of a slow move, but she really needs to make sure that this unit that she lost and then brought back is, and has a trait that is really necessitates the being in water. She needs to kind of get in water. The reason that she could have gone from this square right into the water, but again, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4, and she would have been captured. So this time, not making sure that we do outrange our opponents. So we do have a lot of units kind of in a weird, tense situation over here. All right, so she's getting in the water again. I like that. That's a good move. So Lavellan back in the water, and for the Lavellan, what you're going to be looking for is which units are orthogonally adjacent to the body of water. So right now it's actually the dragon and the rainbow crow. Hypothetically, if she moves out of the water again, both these units would be poisoned, her own unit and an enemy unit. So probably not going to get a lot of value trying to do that next turn, but something to keep an eye on, start to think. So Krogan is starting to get away from the water. Technically, it's actually moved back to being next to the water. So I don't think she did that for the sake of saving herself. But also remember, the crow is burned. It can't move more than 2 spaces because it only has 2 movement points since activating its ability. So it's very limited. Sometimes you kind of want to actively trade your crow, get it off the board just so you can bring it back and reuse its ability. Because having a lame bird on the field is really, really not a threat. All right, so Maggie now choosing to bring her Pegasus across the board, really start threatening. I like this. Everybody should be developing their pieces. It's important to kind of equally spread the burden of pressure that your units have across multiple bodies. All right, let's see what Kenzie does to respond. Okay, so Kenzie is going to move from this. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Again, this costs, or 1, 2, 3, 4, all of her move points to get out. Now, unfortunately, I think this is an illegal move. The reason being, and I'll put it up on the board again, is that the Aspidochelone can only petrify itself when it is in water. The creature that is known for pretending to be an island can't really do so when it's not in the water. No islands out of the water. I think the reason that she had done this, her mindset behind it, is that if the Lavellan gets out, you cannot poison this unit because it's no longer a unit. It's now a mountain, and she would be correct in that. It's just unfortunate that that's not how the ability works. I don't think it's going to be that big of an issue, but and I think actually we go back and we catch it in time to reverse that. So right now it's flipped. It says that it's petrified, but I think we can progress without having to worry about that. All right, so Maggie choosing to move her Lavellan forward. I really like this. I think this is a great move. She goes 1, 2, 3, 4. Out of range of the Aspidochelone. It can't go back and capture. It's really trying to center itself on the board. It's still in the water. It can threaten so many things. It's not being captured. Starting to look towards these nests that, even though they're petrified now, they're not. Hopefully they will always be. I like this. This is a great move. All right, so the Caladrius moving here, I guess trying to line up with her Aspidochelone, try and make a movement over to this last. And again, Maggie only has one nest. You only have to play to one nest. So I can see the reasoning behind it. It's also defending the crow. It's defending this row, which is really important to keep the dragon off of it. There's one problem, and you're going to see what Maggie does. A really, really crushingly strong move. Really proud of her. Really impressed that she played this. So she's going to get out of the water. She's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that will do is, oh no, I think we messed up. Okay, so the good news, so what she does is she poisons 4 units. This is an exceptionally high value move. She's poisoning the crow, which is also burned, but you can be poisoned and burned at the same time. You can't be petrified and burned or poisoned. If something becomes petrified, it will kind of like cure it in a way, out of the fire into the frying pan, though. So the Rainbird, poisoned, burned. Caladrius, poisoned. This, again, is not petrified, is now poisoned. Now, the downside is this dragon is now poisoned. You did poison one of your units for 3 of theirs. Is that worth it? Honestly, a lot of the time it is, because she's not going to be able to... She can only save one of these 3 units. Her curing monster is dead, or is poisoned, so it won't be able to be brought back and do anything. So, yeah, let's see which monster she chooses to save. Yeah, okay, so now that one's... So she's going to move her Aspidochelone 1 across the ground again. And now, in doing so, both those units have been captured by poison. If you don't select a unit to be moved and they're poisoned, they will be captured at turn's end. Now, there's no other units on that row, so the nests are unpetrified. This is the reason I want to do commentary on this one is there is a good amount of interactions. Not all games have a lot of interactions, but Kenzie really prioritizes high interaction monsters. Kenzie or Maggie having a pretty standard team comp between the Pegasus, the Dragon, the Cyclops, pretty low complexity levels, and then you have the Lavellan that can do something so crazy as that. But she played to it. She brought back the Lavellan incrementally back into the water and waited for the right opportunity. So let's see what Maggie will do. Okay, so the dragon is poisoned. I don't know if we're going to keep track of that this whole time. So she moves. She's trying to get on this column or this row. The Caladrius being brought back. I like this. So what this will do is it will cleanse the Aspidochelone of its poison. Hopefully that gets flipped. It will petrify this nest. And again, I guess there's a question moving forward for balance purposes is, can you petrify your last nest? And if doing so, will you lose the game because you no longer have any nests? Or is that balance because if you're in the late game and you need 2 of your units to protect one nest on one row, I think there's an argument to be made for both. So look forward to patch notes to see if there's a resolution of that. But the Caladrius will also be protecting this row from this dragon, which put in a tough spot. Okay. Not sure what I'm feeling with this one. I think you actually could have done an interesting move. If you had moved the dragon to this mountain, you would have been like, well, that doesn't seem great because the Caladrius will just capture it. And you know what? I think you'd be right, actually. Maybe that's not the best move. But she's trying to keep her dragon moving, trying to keep in the game. Maybe it's not the worst move in the world. All right, so the Aspidochelone moving from the ground into this body of water, trying to slowly, insidiously progress towards this nest, but she's choosing to petrify. And I think just because the Aspidochelone can petrify doesn't mean you always want to, especially if you're not within 2 squares of a unit. And she's not right now. That cannot unpetrify itself. So, okay, she's choosing not to petrify. I think that's the right move. This is a great move, okay? You're moving the Lavellan in capturing range of the Caladrius. And the question is, the Caladrius has to move somewhere. Where do you move? It does have options. It can't land on this mountain, can't land on this mountain, and can't land on this mountain because it would just be immediately captured by the Lavellan. Although going here, it would be captured back by the Aspidochelone, but then it would also be, Maggie would capture back with the Pegasus. So this square right here has a lot of units threatening it right now. I think the illegal move, though, unfortunately, is when Maggie moved this Lavellan, we forgot that this dragon was still poisoned. I think it's because we didn't realize that it was poisoned to begin with. So an illegal move that may actually affect the outcome of the game. But that's something to keep in mind. I think we just kind of have to surrender to the fact that no one caught that it was poisoned. So Caladrius moving back. Interesting move. By doing that, you are still keeping it. You're keeping it petrified, the nest. You're also protecting the Aspidochelone. The Aspidochelone can move up 1 square and start to threaten. It's not really in danger, though. So this one, interesting. I don't understand this move quite exactly. Moving it this way. Maybe just buying time. All right, Komainu coming back in, moving from here to here, and now this is no longer petrified. I think she's trying to kind of threaten this area. This is a good move. This is a great move. Even though she lost the dragon, I think this is actually maybe a game. Well, not maybe a game winning, but I think maybe it's not that great. So Aspidochelone could capture, Lavellan would capture back, and then you're kind of 1-for-1ing. Okay, so she's trying to move the Komainu over here, thinking that she can defend a little bit better. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. All these squares are capturable, and it's actually still not defending this square. It can't capture it because it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And also can't capture here, another 6. The Caladrius is the only one defending this square. So that was probably, so this is probably the game-winning move. It doesn't end up being that, but the reason being is that if Kenzie captures with the bird, captures the Pegasus, the Lavellan captures back, and nothing can capture the Lavellan back, and then it's 1 move away from ending the game. You've gotten on this square. The dog cannot capture you. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not in range. This is too far. So that would just be game. Unfortunately, I don't think that's what happened. She kind of gets a little bit trait focused. So this captures back. And I think this is where I got the idea to start doing kind of chess-like puzzles for this game, where you can, it's like Checkmate in 2 or Monstermate in 2. puzzles. I think this may be one of the first ones. So she captures back, and instead of capturing with the Lavellan, I think overestimating the range of the Komainu, but as a terrestrial, just can't get to that second mountain. She's going to choose to move this off the board or out of the body of water, and in doing so, it will poison the Caladrius. Now, ordinarily, again, that's not such a bad move, but you could just be moving to end the game. So she is putting pressure. Okay, so now she has to move that unit because it's poisoned. And you can do a little song, like a little go back and forth dance. Yeah, let's see what she does with it. Choosing to move back here, kind of baiting. Both landing on either of these squares is protected by her units, but she's going to have to keep moving that Caladrius. Unfortunately, bringing the should be dead. It's kind of funny, right? Because she could have monster mated without the dragon if she had lost it via poisoning, ironically. Okay, so this... She's like, okay, well, it's going to die, so I have to get aggressive. And this is the only time where the Lavellan getting on this mountain square is not game winning, because if she moves to this mountain, the Caladrius will just capture and it's game over. So this is check. But unfortunately, this square has been protected this whole game by the Cyclops. And again, the Cyclops is also threatening in all linear directions 4 squares with its ranged attack, because it has not moved. Or hasn't moved the previous turn. So she wisely, Maggie captures the Caladrius. Now, the question is, can you leverage that into an attack somewhere? So, okay. Aspidochelone moving in, realizing that like getting really close is definitely the way. I think it's a little bit too late, though. I think the pressure's there. Now, this is a blunder. She's thinking that she needs to defend this square to prevent the Aspidochelone from getting there. She does not need to be right next to it, though, in order to defend it. She could have been on this square and then gone 1 land, 2, 3, 4 on the mountain and captured. And that would have been good. Unfortunately, now it's opened itself up to attack, because it can go 1 into the water, and then it would only be 1 movement point to get here because it's capturing. And that's what she does. Okay, so now we have it. Now Maggie figures it out. She realizes that she can just go for this square. And this is monster mate. This is, there's nothing Kenzie can do. She realizes now that she doesn't have the move points for this terrestrial unit to go and defend it. And yeah, so she just moves this, just kind of trying to get 1 space closer, showing that, you know, she was pretty close to winning herself. So a pretty close game. I guess only 1 illegal move with the dragon still being used in the game after having been poisoned, but otherwise pretty appropriate. Yeah, and then we bring it home. So a lot of good interactions, some pretty cool plays, and I think there's, you know, an argument to be made about reorienting yourself from the mid game into a later game checkmate focus. But yeah, some really good plays. So great game out of Maggie and Kenzie. Really happy about the team drafts that they had. Some counter picking and some really great plays. Very happy. We definitely have a backlog of some replays, but yeah, they'll be slowly going up. And thank you for stopping by. My name is Das. This is Monstermachy. Feel free to check out the Monstermachy Discord, links on the YouTube channel, or screentop.gg Monstermachy to play. This is Das, signing off. Thanks for stopping by.